Hello, and a very warm welcome to the English Story Nook. We are so glad you could join us for another learning adventure today. Today, we're diving into a story about a hidden world of magic that exists right beside our own. You will learn about two people who discover a powerful, secret connection that is strictly forbidden by an ancient and powerful law. It is a story about secrets, courage, and the difficult choice between following the rules and following your heart. Before we dive in, if you enjoy our stories and want to support what we do, please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and consider buying us a coffee on Ko-fi. There's a link in the description below. Every like, subscription, and small contribution helps us keep creating great content for English learners like you. Let's get started. We're a treaty violation. The air at Nexus Divortium Mower Solutions always felt charged, like the static before a lightning strike. For Cynthia Shalom, it was more than just the hum of high-end servers or the intense pressure of her data analysis job. It was Javier Gutierrez Camero. He was a quiet software engineer with eyes that held a depth she couldn't quite fathom and a presence that seemed to bend the light around him. Their connection was immediate and inexplicable, a silent conversation that ran constantly beneath the surface of their professional interactions. There was a tacit understanding between them, a pull that was as undeniable as it was unnerving. Cynthia often found herself staring at him across the open-plan office, feeling a sense of belonging that she couldn't logically explain. It was a dangerous distraction in a workplace that prized ruthless efficiency above all else. She knew she had to be careful. Any misstep could incur the disapproval of their sharp-eyed manager, Marisol Bahasht. The inciting incident arrived on a Tuesday night, disguised as a system-wide crash. The office lights flickered and died, plunging them into a disorienting darkness broken only by the emergency exit signs. When the backup generators kicked in with a groan, the light they cast was different, weaker, bluer. In that strange, new light, Cynthia saw it. For a split second, the man she knew as Javier was gone. His ears were delicately pointed, his skin seemed to shimmer with a faint, pearlescent glow, and his eyes were pools of liquid silver. He flinched, the illusion snapping back into place so quickly that Cynthia might have convinced herself she'd imagined it. But she hadn't. Later, huddled in the sterile quiet of a conference room, he told her everything. He was of the Fae, from a realm that bordered hers, separated by a veil that was thinnest in places like this office. He was here illegally, a refugee from the rigid politics of his home court. Their connection wasn't just an attraction, it was a biomagical resonance, a rare and powerful bond. "We can't," he whispered, his voice strained. "There's a treaty, the Accords of Separation. It was signed 1,000 years ago to end a war that nearly destroyed both our worlds. Its primary clause is meant to preclude any possibility of another conflict by forbidding permanent bonds between our species." He looked at her, his expression etched with regret. "What we feel, it's a violation. The sanctity of that treaty is absolute. If we were discovered, the consequences would be unthinkable." They agreed to stay apart, a resolution that lasted less than a week. The bond was a current pulling them together, making their professional distance feel like a physical ache. One afternoon, in a forgotten corridor by the fire escape, his hand brushed hers, and a jolt of warmth shot through Cynthia, so potent and real it left her breathless. The moment was ephemeral, lasting only a heartbeat before they sprang apart, but the damage was done. From her desk, Marisol watched them with an unreadable expression. The company had a strict no-fraternization policy, but her stare felt heavier, more significant, as if she knew their transgression was more than just a breach of corporate rules. The treaty was a contentious document in his world, Javier later explained in a hushed, encrypted chat. Many believed it was a relic of a bygone era, but the ruling courts enforced it with an iron fist. Any violation was met with swift and severe reprisal. Their relationship became an exercise in subterfuge. They found liminal spaces where the veil was weak and their connection felt strongest. The rooftop garden at dusk, the echoing server room after hours, a forgotten corner of the public library. In these stolen moments, they built a world of their own. They knew they were playing a dangerous game. If we continue, we will incur a debt that both of us will have to pay, Javier warned, his silver eyes dark with worry. Yet, they couldn't stop. They had to abide by the secrecy, but they couldn't bring themselves to sever the bond that had become their lifeline. Their defiance was a tacit rebellion against a law they refused to accept. The game changed when Roque Ahmed arrived. He wasn't a new hire. He was an entity. Dressed in a suit that seemed woven from shadow and silk, he moved with an unnatural grace. The Fae in the office, and Cynthia was now shockingly aware there were several, bowed their heads as he passed. Roque was an enforcer, a member of the Sealy Court's judiciary, tasked with maintaining the treaty. His presence was a promise of reprisal. He cornered Javier by the coffee machine, speaking in a fluid, musical language that sounded like chiming bells and breaking ice. Though Cynthia couldn't understand the words, the menace was universal. Later, Roque approached her desk. "The accords are not a suggestion, Ms. Shalom," he said, his voice dangerously soft. "They are the only thing preventing a war that would make your human conflicts look like playground squabbles. This connection you have is a spark, and I am here to extinguish it before it becomes an inferno." He gave them an ultimatum. Javier would return to their realm to face judgment, and she would have her memory of him wiped. If they refused, they would both be taken. They found themselves cornered in the main server room, the very heart of Nexus Divordium malware solutions. The air was thick with power, both technological and magical, a truly liminal space. This was it, the crisis point, separation and a hollow safety, or a shared catastrophic fate. "He wants to make an example of us," Javier said, his hand finding hers, their fingers lacing together. "To prove the sanctity of the treaty is non-negotiable." Cynthia looked at the racks of humming servers, at the faint shimmer in the air that marked the veil. An idea, born of desperation and her intimate knowledge of the company's network architecture, began to form. "The treaty is contentious because it's flawed," she said, her voice gaining strength. "It's designed to preclude connection, but it can't. We're proof of that. What if we don't choose either of his options?" With Javier guarding the door, Cynthia's fingers flew across her keyboard. She wasn't just a data analyst, she was a digital architect. She bypassed firewalls, rerouted data streams, and linked the server's internal comms to a public broadcast protocol. Then, she amplified the room's ambient audio. "Roque," she said, her voice now booming through hidden speakers across the office, and, through a back door she and Javier had built, into the Fae Court's own communication network. "A treaty that fears love is a treaty built on fear. It's not peace, it's suppression." Roque burst into the room, his face a mask of fury. But it was too late. Javier stood beside her, his Fae glamour falling away, not as a mistake, but as a declaration. "Our bond is not an act of war," he proclaimed, his voice resonating with an ancient power. "It is proof that the war is over. We will not abide by rules that demand we deny our own hearts." Their defiance, their love story, their very existence was now streaming into two worlds, Their subterfuge was over, replaced by a bold, public declaration. Their once ephemeral moments were now a permanent record. The fallout was immediate. Other voices, other hidden couples, began to emerge from the shadows in both realms, echoing their call for change. Roque was left powerless, his authority shattered by a wave of dissent he could not contain. Their future was a blank page, but they would write it together, a living treaty of their own making. That's the end of our story for today. It was a powerful story about choosing between following the rules and following your heart. What would you do in a similar situation? Let us know your ideas in the comments section. We always love reading what you have to say. And remember to check the description box for some extra materials to help you practice with today's story. Thank you for joining us at the English Story Nook. Keep practicing, stay curious, and we look forward to seeing you in our next story. Happy learning, and goodbye for now.